So now we'll discuss about topics that are interesting for team leaders, especially because we didn't do such a meeting in 3 years, and we have a lot of new team leaders. I think we are 160 people in the room today. When we did the last one, I think it was 3 years ago, we were probably 50 team leaders. So that gives you an idea. Okay, let's talk about recruitment. So recruitment is super important. What's key when you do recruitment is to assess the competencies and not the experience or the knowledge. What you should try to do is to try if the person is able to learn things rather than to know if he knows things. Because if someone has 10 years experience and you ask him questions about what he did in the past, for you it will feel that he knows better than maybe someone inexperienced, but it doesn't mean that the guy was good in his job. All it means it was that he already went through this situation. So it's important to ask questions to try to understand if the person is able to learn, if the person is smart, can understand something he doesn't know yet, rather than just think. One of the issues we see with middle managers is that a lot of them undervalue the value of the logical test. The logical test that we do, the thing is most interviewers, they spend maybe 30, 40, 1 hour talking with a candidate. So what they say during the discussion they have with the candidate is very important for them because they spent 1 hour on that. For the logical test or IQ test, they only spend 5 minutes on it. They get the results, he did the 63%, and that's it. So they undervalue it because they didn't spend time on it. But what I want to emphasize is that this test is very relevant to predict the quality of a candidate. And that is the statistics over the 1,700 people that we interviewed so far. And as you can see, the ones in green are the ones we hired, and the ones in red are the ones we didn't hire. And there is a real difference because this test is very relevant. Obviously, it's averages, so you have to take care because there are a lot of deviations. It's not an ultimate test. I mean, some people are very good and fail this test, and in the other way around, some people were very good in this test and were not good candidates. But amongst all the signals we have to value someone if he is good for the job, this one is a very important one. For me, it's the second one. The first test that is the most important is the ability to execute the job. So for a developer is to try make him develop and see if he can develop. For a salesperson, do a demo of Odoo and check if he is able to do a demo of the software and learn quickly, even though he doesn't know the software. So, but I emphasize on this one because I know that some team leaders undervalue this one and the statistics are in favor of this one. And then I checked with the one we fired. So the one we recruited, because there is always a survival bias. Maybe we recruited them because they had a good test. But the thing is, the sample was very low. For the developers, it was only 3 people for which we had the test and that we fired. So I don't think it means a lot. But for most of the job, you see that even the guys that we fired, whether it's in sales, support, or business analyst, their IQ test was lower than the average of the one we did not hire. So this one is not very relevant. We still need to wait 1 or 2 years to get more data, but it's just to emphasize on the fact that this is important. I have the test by department too, if you want, but I didn't share the statistics. If you are interested, I can send it after. So how to assess a competency? The thing is you have to test if he is smart. Logical test is a good way to do it. Can he do a demo? To test if he's able to learn something quickly. Let's suppose he doesn't know Odoo. So put him in front of Odoo and ask him to do a demo. Is a good way to see if he's able to learn and understand something he doesn't know. Or think about the business process, the business flow, where we ask him to do a business very efficient. Or is he a good developer or a good salesperson? So all these tests are good because they test if the person is able to learn or think. And that's what matters for the people we recruit. They don't test if they know something. If you ask, when you have that kind of situation, would you do this or that? Someone experienced will provide you a better answer. Not because he's good, just because he's experienced. So you have to take care about this. So yeah, we can avoid questions to assess experience, or we can do them but don't value them too much in your judgment. What would you do in this situation? What's your biggest success or failure? asking to describe a process he already knows. I think it's better to describe a process he doesn't know, so we have to think about understanding something. Or talking about his past job or the achievement, won't tell you if the guy is good at the job. He will all he will tell you is that he had the job title. But that doesn't mean that maybe he was the worst of the team, you don't know. Okay, and to talk about recruitment, speaking about the worst of the team, the transition was not perfect. Victorine, if you can come. So in order to introduce Victorine, so she's in charge of recruitment for the business analysts, they did something which is totally unusual. They do interviews with two people at the same time in the same room. And they challenge each other and they do the same test. When I heard that, I thought it was very weird. I mean, it's strange. It feels like you create competition between candidates and so on. And then because I thought it didn't work, I asked a lot of candidates after the process, did they like it? And all the feedback I get from the candidates was that it was very good. So I was surprised, so I'd like you to share your experience with that, maybe.
Yes, thank you for the nice pictures. I didn't expect that. Just to clarify, I'm not in charge of the recruitment. I'm one of the people doing that, but I'm the lucky one who could come on the stage today. And the first one of the day, so that's great, thank you. Yes, so when our team decided to hire many people, Catherine and Sancy, I guess, and maybe you, Fabien, we decided to do interviews with two candidates at the same time. So at first it was a bit strange, but actually it works pretty well. So basically, how does it work? We try to mix individual questions with exercises and questions and use cases they have to do together. And it has many advantages. For example, we can see very easily and quick if someone takes the lead more, or if someone tends to stay behind and don't talk and so on, if the candidate doesn't know the answer to the question. We ask them to prepare some things together so we can see the capacity to summarize information and so on. So it's every time we do that, we ask the candidates feedback about that, because it's quite unusual, apparently. And every candidate was really satisfied with this format of interview, and so are we.
Yeah, one of the candidates told me that actually, because I was asking them, isn't it weird, or do you feel competition? And he told me that actually it's the opposite. I felt very comfortable because it was not me against the interviewer. We were together, and
yeah. Well, at the beginning they think it's like it's a competition, so they check the other one. Okay, how is it going to happen? And then we remind them that it's not a competition, it's something they have to do together, they have to collaborate and so on. So we try to explain the mindset of Odoo directly. And so the whole interview is done with this team spirit mindset that we try to promote.
And sometimes you recruit both or none?
Both, none of them, one of them, it really depends.
And if you have to compare, because after I think you did also the regular recruitment with one candidate, if you have to compare the advantage and disadvantage?
Well, the most difficult thing with two candidates is to be focused on both candidates at the same time. So usually what I do, but I think it's the same for my colleagues, when they have 20 minutes to prepare the last use case, I try to check my notes, and I try to think about questions to ask during the debrief. We do that with one candidate at the same time. So yeah, the difficulty to be focused on both candidates, it's a bit longer. Because after each use case, we ask the other candidate, okay, what do you think? Would you do the use case differently, and so on? But I think the main advantage is that you can see things really faster. As I said, like the team spirit, the capacity to let the other candidate speak, to help them, to coach the candidate. For example, you can have two candidates with two very different backgrounds. one candidate who have more technical skills, for example. And during one use case, which is the data model that we don't do anymore, but we did it a lot, you can see if the more experienced candidate let the other one search and try, or if he or she tries to talk the most and doesn't leave enough room for the other one.
I remember you told me, I think it was you, that sometimes if one candidate talks way too much and you didn't have time enough to evaluate the other, you take the second one or the both after independently on a one-on-one meeting after the interview.
Yes, well, we do two things. First, if we notice that one candidate is quite shy and doesn't dare to talk, we try to ask this candidate, okay, now you can stop talking, and you, what do you think? So we try to push him or her to talk more, and then indeed during the individual debrief we ask a more personal question, like what are your motivations for the job, why Odoo, and so on, because during the interview, if they do that together, they try to say, they tend to say, oh, it's exactly the same thing, I have the same motivation as the other one. So
Okay, thank you. We're good. Tatiana, I think you are the next one, if you can come already on the stage. Okay, so the idea here is not to say that we should do that for every interview, but I think it's a good idea that could work in some environment. So I'll let you all decide if you feel like it's good for the type of people you recruit, but at least for them it was a big success. They stopped doing it because we recruit way less consultants for now. We recruit only 2 per month, so they don't have enough volumes to justify that. But it was very efficient, so probably in the future we'll come back to that, I think. So let's continue. Promoting team leader. What's important at Odoo, the future of the company is the team leaders. It's not me or the managers, or it's the team leaders. They define the culture, they define how people behave together. So as an Odoo manager, I think we have to be team leader before. So I'll explain what I mean by that. What we expect from a team leader is basically one thing: someone that helps the team evolve, or that helps the team be more efficient and productive. That's the main thing we are looking for in a team leader. A lot of companies are looking for people that have some that have some strong opinions, that do plannings and KPIs, that are good into controlling stuff, reporting. For us, it's not important. What matters is that the team leader is at the service of the team, and not the other way around. So that's very important. And when we choose the new team leaders, that's what we should have in mind. Is it a guy that when you have a question, everyone already refers to him? Most of the time, these team leaders were already leaders before we gave them the job title of the team leader, because they were the people who helped everyone, who everyone asked when they had a question because he was expert. And for that purpose, for us, in a lot of companies, managers are managers. For us, managers are more the best of the team. It's also one of the reasons why we never recruit external managers. It's because we want the guy to be the best of the team, because if he's not the best of the team, he won't have a lot of things to teach to his team. All right, and to speak about that, I'd like to call Tatiana on the stage. So maybe for the background, we had an HR team with no manager. Alessandro was the manager, but they had a lot of autonomy, so they were basically on their own, I would say.
Yeah, that's true.
And there were 6. And at some point, we had to do the move of promoting a team leader in the team. So we rolled the dice, and it was you. We didn't roll the dice, but... And so she faced something that a lot of people in the room will have or already have, which was from moving from a colleague to a manager. So maybe if you can tell us about your experience, how you evolved into that area and your conclusions.
So hello everyone. So just to introduce myself, so my name is Tatiana, as you know. I joined Odoo almost 4 years ago, and I was always involved in the recruitment, especially for the service team. And in July last year, Alessandro asked me to become a team leader, and I say, okay, what a challenge, because...
Nobody wanted, huh? All the other HR,
Yeah.
no, we don't need a team leader. We are all good that way.
Yeah, because we were used to work like with no team leader. But when I started in the team, it was a small HR team, and now we are 7 in the recruitment team, and it will be 10 in the next few months. And so I accept the challenge. But you have to know that in addition than being the colleague, I'm also their friends. So it was quite challenging for me, but I think that after a lot of fear and questioning, the team understand I would say, the added value of having someone who knows the field of the recruitment, the challenge, and to have like a big vision and big picture of what is, asking every day. And my advice would be that when you become a team leader and that you know well your team, you have to split directly the difference between personal and private and professional life. And it's not because you know someone as a friend that you know someone in a working life. You really know to make the difference directly. And you have to accept that you have to be a step back, maybe not include it in everything anymore. And really to understand your team.
Was it a good move? Because I have to admit that I was not sure. I mean, I was happy to have a team that were fully autonomous. Not about you, about the fact that we needed to promote a team leader, because it was cool. I mean, having a team with no manager that decides everything, it's efficient. So we hesitated a lot. And what's your feedback? Did after all, was it necessary or not?
Yes, I think the team, after a few months, they really understood my added value. I can really give, I would say, more specific and instructive feedback to them, because Alessandro is managing a huge team, not only HR but also admin and accounting. So it was hard for him to really be with everyone and to give the time for each member of the team. So yes, it's a good choice.
So the advantage would be that you had more time to coach them, I would say.
Yeah, that's my role. Yeah.
And if there are tricks to avoid or things to take care of, mistakes you did, do you have at the beginning?
Yeah, as I said, that to really split directly private and working aspect, because they are my friends, so we are used to see each other after work and to organize parties. So it's really hard, and to avoid to use sentimental to solve issue and to make decision.
Yeah, and one of the complexity was that your authority was not granted. No. I mean, you had to
not
prove
directly
because there were some little tensions. But I think the main advice we have is that if someone feels that he is the same situation than you, just talk to Tatiana.
Yeah, feel free to discuss with that.
Thank you. The next one is Anthony. Haven't seen him. Yeah. Ouais, c'est bon. And I'm talking about firing people. And about that, I'd like to say something. Before Anthony goes on the stage, it's Jim Rohn, but we are not sure, that said that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I'm not sure if it's true, but what's true is that people like to work with smart people, and people doesn't like to work with crabs. I don't know if we say that in the crab. So I think as a company, it's our duty to be sure that we offer the right environment and be sure that all colleagues are good. Most of the time it means coaching and teaching people. Sometimes it means, unfortunately, to fire people. And one of the advice I have here, because at least for me, but I think it's the same for everyone, I always did the same mistake when I had to do that, is that I did it too late. And now I think I should think more about when there is a doubt, there is no doubt, because we are all optimistic, so we want to think that it will work. So we are always positive, this guy is good, it will work. But at some points your confidence is broken, and what I think is that when we arrive to that situation, it's very rare that we change our mind. So now we used to say when there is a doubt, there is no doubt. So when there is a doubt that it won't work, it's probably because it's already too late. We already did the switch, and it probably won't work. That's an advice I have, not because I want to fire people. I'd like to avoid that, obviously, but because when we have to do that, we really have to do that. It's better for the team, and we all most of the time do it too late. And it's usually no. And I will.
Okay. So first, hello. I think you should play the rocky music when people go down the stair.
Yeah, if you can, Fleur.
So yes, Fabien asked me to talk about this, and I told him, oh no, because I don't want to have this recorded, because I will say some truth, and maybe after, if you cut, some snippet of what I say, it's awful, but it's the truth,
And it's super important because a lot of people here are faced to the challenge of that.
And you will be faced, or you are already faced with something that we were faced with at the beginning of Odoo, and it was very difficult for us. I think it's a bit easier now. So what I want to say, what Fabien says at the beginning, the quote, it's very important that people really want to be around people that they think are interesting or smart, etc. So when this kind of thing happen, there is some kind of mind trick, because probably firing people is the least pleasant thing that we do in our job. I think for me personally, Odoo was a very cool experience, and the only downside of this experience was when I had to fire people, because it's awful. So what you do, usually you try to procrastinate it. And I did it a lot of time. I'm very guilty of this. And you say, okay, if you know that you will have to do it, you say, okay, I will do it tomorrow, and then after tomorrow. Or sometimes you would say, maybe I will give him a chance and we will see how he evolves, etc. But my experience is that every time I did this, actually, it was better to have done it before. And there is something else that I think maybe not 100% of the time, but maybe 90, I didn't fire 100 people, but let's say 90% of the time, or 95% of the time. After you fire the person, you feel better and you have no regret.
Yeah, because you discover all the issues.
Because after you discover that really it was the good thing to do, and that all the excuse you made to yourself before were wrong, and you had to do it, and after you say, oh yeah,
now
it's so obvious now. Once you've done it, it's obvious that you should have done it.
I should explain
and
more in detail that.
And I say, it's not... I say there is maybe, it's not 100% sure. It's not 100% sure, but probably 90% of the time. And also for the person, usually it's better too. Even if it's an awful moment, after, if the person is not at the right place, it's not good for that person too. It's better to give him a chance to do something else elsewhere. So.
Yeah, usually they also feel it. So if we are not comfortable, most of the time they are not comfortable neither. So
I had many people who, not all of them, but maybe 50% who at the end of this awful moment say, yeah, actually I feel relieved because I was thinking I'm not at the right place here.
For me, the complexity was that there is always a doubt. We are never sure. Yeah. We are always like, I think, because I only spent a few days with him, I think something wrong, and then I check. And so we are always in a situation, let's wait something else. Let's see 1 month later, or let's do that and see. And we are never sure, because we are positive people, so we want to think it will work. And at some point, we have to take a decision without being completely sure. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when we do it, after that, people talk. And that's why you say that we don't regret, because after that, the other employee come and say, oh yeah, I had this problem, or you have tasks that are not finished that you have to do the handover, and you notice how big of an issue it was, and that's where all your regret disappears.
In R&D, maybe it's a bit special, because I say to the people of my team that if they think there is a problem with somebody, I will look at it and I will help them to, maybe we'll fire this person, maybe not. Maybe sometimes it's just we switch him to another team, and actually it works. So
I think you do something very good. Is that when someone tell you this guy is bad, you sit and do a task with him for a few days.
Yeah, that's what I do. But the problem is that no, I don't do much task anymore. And every time I go to somebody and do a task with him, maybe he suspects something, But it's true that the people I wanted to make sure that I don't fire people. Some like genius that we didn't understand, you know. And so I sit with them and we do a simple task and we code together. And after doing that for a few hours, and then after you realize, yeah, okay, I need to it's not possible. We cannot continue like this. And it happened a bit. We had a bad streak of people, but it was during COVID. And I think during COVID, it was more difficult to assess people because we didn't see them physically. And sometimes they were on their own for 1 or 2 months on a task. And then after, we realized only that, okay, the task is completely, it's completely stuck and the guy didn't do anything.
And I'm not sure you want to talk about it, but a few weeks ago you told me you were very proud of something
Yeah.
new in your team.
And but it's foreign. I think in our department it's different. But I was very proud that one of my team leader said, "Okay, I know that we have to fire this person, and I will handle it myself." You know, I don't say with this because it's like, oh, congratulations for firing people. But it's true that when you commit to the team, it's something that you have to do, and it's like you have the full package. And when you do that, it means that you do everything. He knows who he is, but I will not say his name. Okay, something else? Yeah.
Up to you? No?
No.
Okay, we are good on the topic.
So if at one time you hesitate about firing people and you have a doubt and blah blah blah, you can come talk to me because it's but it's true that it's a subject that we sometimes talk about with like Sébastien or Catherine or because it's a tricky subject and it's like a support group, you know, psychological support group. We talk about it like, okay, yeah, we have to do it, blah 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 blah. So if you hesitate, don't hesitate to talk to me and we can discuss about it.
Yeah, and keep in mind that you will always have a doubt.
Yeah.
You are never sure when you do that. So when you have a doubt, talk to someone, investigate, work with the guy, but do something, because if you wait that you have no doubt anymore, it probably won't happen. And if it will happen, it's going to be way too late. The dégâts sur la team will be too big.
The damage. No, but it's true. When you have a bad person, it damages the people because they say, "Oh, this guy does nothing or he's bad. So why do we keep him?" And I work, and you know, it
or you
creates a bad
receive the task,
dynamics.
and the tasks are not clean, so you have to finish them yourself. And
Okay, thank you.
Nicolas. Catherine, you are the next one. And so I heard a lot of people, not in R&D, but maybe in R&D, but more in the Louvain-la-Neuve side of things, that have issues with young, I would say, people. And for that, I have a video. I'm not sure it will work. Yeah, will it? I cut it, but it's still long. And I introduce with the video and we'll come with more information about what we should do at Odoo to help.
What's the millennial question? Apparently millennials as a generation, which is a group of people who were born approximately 1984 and after, are tough to manage. And they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic and self-interested, unfocused, lazy. But entitled is the big one. And because they confound leadership so much, what's happening is leaders are asking the millennials, what do you want? And millennials are saying, we want to work in a place with purpose, love that. We want to make an impact, you know, whatever that means. We want free food and beanbags. And so somebody articulates some sort of purpose, there's lots of free food and there's beanbags, and yet for some reason they're still not happy. And that's because they're missing, there's a missing piece. What I've learned is that I can break it down into 4 pieces, right? There are four things, 4 characteristics. One is parenting, the other one is technology, the third is impatience, and the fourth is environment. The generation that we call the millennials, too many of them grew up subject to, not my words, failed parenting strategies, you know, where, for example, they were told that they were special all the time. They were told that they can have anything they want in life, just because they want it, right? So you have an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations, right? Through no fault of their own, right? They were dealt a bad hand, right? Now let's add in technology. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive. Right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down. But that's basically what's happening. Right? That's basically what happened. You have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress of adolescence. Why is this important? Almost every alcoholic discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. When we're very, very young, the only approval we need is the approval of our parents. And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the broader tribe. Right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress, that's pretty much the primary reasons why an alcoholic drinks. Right? What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is as they grow older, too many kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, but they also know that their friends will cancel on them if something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook. Right? These things balanced. Alcohol is not bad. Too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun. Too much gambling is dangerous. Right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance. Right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care, that sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important to me right now, right? That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are addicted, right? If you wake up and you check your phone before you say good morning to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time, it'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse, right? So you have a generation growing up with lower self-esteem that doesn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. Right? Now you add in the sense of impatience. Right? They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week. Right? I know people who skip seasons just so they can binge at the end of the season. Right? Instant gratification. You want to go on a date? You don't even have to learn how to be like, hey. You don't even have to learn and practice that skill. You don't have to be the uncomfortable one who says yes when you mean no and says no when you mean no and yes when you... You don't have to swipe right. Bang, I'm a stud. Right? You don't have to learn the social coping mechanisms. Right? Everything you want, you can have instantaneously. Everything you want, instant gratification. Except job satisfaction and strength of relationships, there ain't no app for that. They are slow, meandering, uncomfortable, messy processes. And so I keep meeting these wonderful, fantastic, idealistic, hardworking, smart kids. They've just graduated school. They're in their entry-level job. And I sit down with them and I go, how's it going? They go, I think I'm going to quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months. You know? It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they have this abstract concept called impact that they want to have in the world, which is the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I don't care if you go up the mountain quickly or slowly, but there's still a mountain. And so what this young generation needs to learn is patience. That some things that really, really matter, like love, or job fulfillment, joy, love of life, self-confidence, a skill set, any of these things, all of these things take time. Sometimes you can expedite pieces of it, but the overall journey is arduous and long and difficult. And if you don't ask for help and learn that skill set, you will fall off the mountain, or you will, the worst case scenario, and we're already seeing it, the worst case scenario is we're seeing an increase in suicide rates, we're seeing an increase in this generation, we're seeing an increase in accidental deaths due to drug overdoses, we're seeing more and more kids drop out of school or take leaves of absence due to depression. Unheard of. These are all, this is really bad. The best case scenario, those are all bad cases, right? The best case scenario is you'll have an entire population growing up and going through life and just never really finding joy. They'll never really find deep fulfillment in work or in life. They'll just waft through life and it'll be just, it's fine. How's your job? It's fine. It's the same as yesterday. How's your relationship? It's fine. Like that's the best case scenario, which leads me to the fourth point, which is environment, which is we're taking this amazing group of young, fantastic kids who are just dealt a bad hand. It's no fault of their own. And we put them in corporate environments that care more about the numbers than they do about the kids. They care more about the short-term gains than the long-term life of this young human being. We care more about the year than the lifetime, right? And so we are putting them in corporate environments that aren't helping them build their confidence, that aren't helping them learn the skills of cooperation, that aren't helping them overcome the challenges of a digital world and finding more balance, that isn't helping them overcome the need to have instant gratification and teach them the joys and impact and the fulfillment you get from working hard on something for a long time that cannot be done in a month or even in a year. And so we're thrusting to them in corporate environments, and the worst part about it is they think it's them. They blame themselves. They think it's them who can't deal. And so it makes it all worse. It's not. I'm here to tell them it's not them. It's the corporations. It's the corporate environments. It's the total lack of good leadership in our world today that is making them feel the way they do. They were dealt a bad hand, and I hate to say it, but it's the company's responsibility. Sucks to be you. Like, we have no choice, right? This is what we got, and I wish that society and their parents did a better job. They didn't. So we're getting them in our companies, and we now have to pick up the slack. We have to work extra hard to figure out the ways that we build their confidence. We have to work extra hard to find ways to teach them the social skills that they're missing out on.
Yeah, so it was very long. I didn't expect it to be that long, but I believe the message is important.
What's the millennial question?
Apparently, millennials as a generation, which is a group of people.
What's the millennial question?
Apparently, millennials, 1984 and after, are tough to manage, and they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic and self-interested.
Where is it? It's okay. I'm there. Obviously, not everyone is like that, but it's something I hear from the different team leaders that they sometimes feel in the team. So it's good to recognize the thing. what matters here is that we have a duty to deal with it and to give them purpose, autonomy, responsibilities, and evolution. This generation needs it more than the previous one. So it's our job. And I think, and I'm very happy with that, at Odoo we have been pretty good at giving purpose. I mean, we really have an impact in terms of transforming SMEs, autonomy and responsibilities and evolution. But there are also ways where we have to educate them. So we cannot fulfill all their needs. For these needs, it's important that we fulfill them. For the other unrealistic expectation, like I need more breakfast in the morning, for the ones who read the no, I'm just kidding. Here it's more a matter of educating. We cannot try as a team leader to satisfy every demand. We have to put the barriers where it's our responsibility to offer them a great working environment with autonomy, purpose, responsibility, evolution. But also we have to set the barriers where we have to teach them and educate them on what matters and what is important, because there are things where we will never be able to satisfy them because there will probably never be. So it's better to educate some people on that. All right. And I'm saying that because when I was preparing the presentation, some people told me that at Odoo it has always been work hard, play hard. But it's starting to drift on play hard and play hard. It's not a generality, but that's something I hear more in Louvain-la-Neuve. And that's probably one of the issues we should take care also. It's probably our fault, by the way, because we didn't give them, for some, like the quick start, not enough work. And to talk about that, I'd like to invite Catherine on the stage. Yeah, you don't have an easy topic neither.
Hey. So first of all, maybe before starting talking about that, I would like to tell you that we are all part of this generation he was talking about. And the generation coming after goes a bit further than this. So what I would like to tell you is, like, first of all, like, think about your own experience, your own evolution in this company, knowing that you've got, like, a large majority of you got a role of team leader really, really early in their career. And it's good news. It gives you a lot of challenge. It gives you a lot of things to learn. But at the end of the day, it's really early. And you still have like a lot to learn, and a lot to learn from each other as well. So I don't know if you have a question, because
yeah, can you have some example where you told yourself, I have a situation where I have to explain because the expectations are not realistic. Do you have some very real examples that you can share, maybe?
Yeah, sure. But I think all the consultants remember an MES session I organized the end of the year or beginning of this year. One of the questions was, that was not a question actually, there was a statement that was like, this is a scandal, we didn't receive a Christmas gift this year. I was like, wow, is it your main concern in the job? So is it like the biggest problem you have today? Because this is quite good news. And yeah, the way to explain that is like, we don't have to like focus as team leaders on satisfying everybody and giving a yes answer to everything. We need kind of to reparent them, like as Simon Sinek said it earlier. We need to like tell them what matters and bring them to evolve on what matters. I don't think a Christmas gift is the best way to support them.
It's actually negative because it becomes a due.
Yeah, yeah.
So
and we had that conversation with Seb after that. And we were like, yeah, in other companies, this is kind of a tradition. And the thing is, year after year, people become a bit frustrated because the gift is shit. And so you have to like think about it and just like make it bigger and bigger and better, which doesn't really matter. What matters, I do think, in this company is to give purpose, is to help people like keep growing, keep learning, keep facing challenges everywhere, every day. And the thing is, I do think that on that part we do a good job, and we have to keep improving, because Like, for example, in the consulting team, we struggled a bit with that because we went a bit too far in terms of recruitment this year. So we need to go back to give a lot of challenges to people and to show them that they can keep evolving as consultants, sales, developers, and keep face challenging all the time.
Yeah, we'll talk about the rewards after. I have another
sorry.
proposition. But no, it's okay. No, I think it's important because we are all team leaders and we want to help people. I mean, you are all here because we promoted team leader on people who want to help and teach and coach others. So we always want to satisfy your team. But there is a balance. There are things on which we can satisfy. Purpose, autonomy, responsibility, things that matter. And there are things on where we should not try to satisfy. Otherwise, it goes worse and worse and worse, where we shouldn't satisfy the people, but more educate them. That's a reason why we do the Ask Me Anything. It was because we can explain and answer to all the questions or frustrations or good feedback, at least.
Yeah, and at the same time, this is pretty complicated because sometimes, and actually all the time, we tell people, okay, give feedback, come back with like what you experience in the field so that we can keep improving. And sometimes we have to say no. So this is not the direction we want to take. We try to explain. We have to explain, like way more than to our generation. The next one needs to understand. So the why is really important for them. But at the end of the day, I think we should work more and more and keep improving our ability to make the difference between the right request and like the right request where there is something to improve and just like something they would like to happen, but which is not like in line with what we want to do.
The gift was the extreme example, but there are a lot of gray area which is difficult.
Yeah, timesheet is a good topic. I'm not sure I want to open this topic right now.
Keep that for your department. Okay, thank you, among touches. And now let's talk to yet another difficult topic. Is Aurore, you are the next, so if you can join close. How to deal with frustrated people. And yeah, there is a risky pattern. There are a lot of frustrated people. Sometimes it's okay, it's just for them. But the pattern we should avoid, and the more complex one, because it creates negativity in teams and nobody wants to work in a negative environment, is that when some people are frustrated, they try to convince others. It's a pattern we have seen several times, and they form small group and they try to have others that agree with them. And one of the things you will also notice is that they generalize issues. It never works, or managers never understand, or this or the accounting doesn't work. Maybe there is 2 bugs, but or nothing changed. And they generalize things where sometimes it's just 2 or 3 issues you have to fix. And sometimes the root cause are not clear, and sometimes they don't even know the root cause. It could be personal. They are in a bad mood for now. It's maybe not related to the job, or it is, but most of the time I noticed that the root cause are not clear. We criticize things, but the actual root cause is a bit different. And that's something we, as team leader, we should try to avoid because it's not good for the team when it happens. It doesn't happen that often, so that's good, but you will probably be faced in your lifetime in 1 or 2 cases where you will have to deal with that. And the way to answer this is, first, is to address frustrations early on. The earlier you do it, the best it is. And it's not easy because nobody likes confrontation, especially when someone is frustrated. You don't want to frustrate him even more. So you try to avoid confrontation. But I think you should create the discussion and the communication early on. And it's very hard because frustrated people don't talk to you. They talk to the team, sometimes mount the team against you, but they don't talk to you. So you have to recreate a communication and a discussion so that you can address and discuss on the frustration. The earlier, the better. What's important too is to stay factual. When people generalize issues, like nothing works, go deep and try to understand what are the root cause, what are the problem, and stay factual because these are the things you can solve. You cannot solve nothing works, but you can solve these 3 bugs. That's for R&D, but it could be everything for services, or you can solve when you really identify what's the thing. So you have to stay factual. I don't know, it's not that nothing works. It's like 7% of our tickets are late, but not everything. Identify the root cause. That's very important. And sometimes the root cause is not even about the work, but putting a name on the root cause helps the person understand, and so it helps you try to address the issue to fix it. And also, we all have the same reflex, which is when someone is frustrated, we take it on ourselves. I did it a lot at the beginning. It's that you think it's your fault, you try to improve, and then the frustration goes along for months and months and months. And at some point, you don't have to take it personally, because there are things where you cannot do anything. It's not your fault necessarily. It's an environment. It's things to fix, but don't take it too personally, because it shouldn't drag you in the negativity in addition to that. And know how to deal with your frustrations. When you have a frustration, whether it's a very, very small one or a very big one, the key is to talk to the person directly, even if you are unsure and even if it's a detail. And that's very important, because most of the time you are not sure. You feel like someone did something wrong, or you feel that a job has not been done correctly, but you are never sure. Unless you spend a lot of time on it, you are never sure if it's his fault, if it's the fault of someone else. What we learn with experience, what I learned with experience, is that you have to talk to the person even if you're not sure, because it allows to discuss. There is nothing wrong in talking about something you have in mind. Just tell him, I think maybe I'm wrong. There is nothing wrong at discuss these issues with someone. The wrong thing is to keep it for yourself, because if you keep it for yourself, it can be even worse. So don't be afraid on the confrontation. A lot of young team leaders are afraid of confrontation. Actually go for the confrontation so that you can dégonfler the frustrations, yours or theirs. And that is something very important. And to give you an example, I have an example where I failed. It was 2 days ago, because I was preparing this presentation 2 days ago. So I took the frustration of the day. So it's not a big one, but I went to an exhibition. I can show you here. Can you read or not? Isn't it too small? So I went to an exhibition with Kevin and Nico. And at some point I had the feeling that at the exhibition there were a lot of people and we were completely overloaded. And then Kevin and Nico went to eat at the lunchtime, which is okay. And I had the feeling that they left for 2 hours. And I was alone with Hélène, the marketing, trying to answer all the prospects for them, because they are the direct sales. For 3 hours in a row, I was late in my meeting. So he wrote to me to say, yeah, the exhibition was great, great, great. And I answered him, yeah, that's good. But next time, don't leave for 2 hours at the lunchtime in the middle of the exhibition. We lost deals because we were overloaded and we couldn't answer to all the people who were coming to the booth. I was not sure about that. It's just a feeling, a very small feeling, and nothing important. But I showed you this example because even if it's a small one, it's better to talk about it. And then he answered, oh yes, thank you for the feedback, but we only left for 35 minutes. So he checked, only 35. So I was completely wrong with my 2 hours. It's probably the feeling of being stressed of all these guys. So we went to eat and so on. And then I answered, okay, fair, no worries. Sorry, I thought it was too long, but that 35 minutes is totally okay. And I'm probably wrong. That's just an example of even the small one. It's really a detail. I didn't care that much at the time, but I wanted to educate them so that I'm sure that the next time on the exhibition they don't do the same and leave their team in the rush. It's just a small detail, but it's just to show you how unimportant it is to talk about things, and it's better. The worst thing would have been for me to keep that in mind. If I would have kept this guy left for 2 hours, where next time I won't be very reluctant for him to come with a team at an exhibition, because he will probably not support the team there. But because I talk about it, even if I was wrong, I just killed the frustration. I was not frustrated, but it was a little detail. So that's something for me, it's important. Even if you are unsure, even if it's a detail, there is nothing wrong to talk with the people. And if you are wrong, they will tell you, and then you say, oh, sorry, I was wrong. No, nothing more. Clear? Okay, let's talk about the reward and the motivation and the gift of the end of the year. Congratulations and reward. As a team leader, the more you do, the best it is. To congratulate your team, to thank you for what they do. And sometimes it's little details matter, and just, oh, good job on a small development. It doesn't have to be a big achievement. It could be small things every day. It's probably better than having a big celebration once a year. So the more you do, the best it is. For the very important rewards, what we do and what I do, it has to be personal. No, she will come. It's just to save time, because the reward should be personal, and should be related to an achievement. And that's very important. So what I recommend as a reward for the big achievement, or for the ones who need it doesn't have to be someone who achieved the most. Sometimes people need more reward than others. In your team, there are people that could be frustrated if they don't have enough reward, so you can reward them. What I do that works the best is an unwritten card with a small note. Thank you for that. And with a small gift. It could be a bottle of champagne or a game or whatever. You can do that. It's a reminder that you as a team leader, you can do that. You can take the responsibility to offer that. Just create an expense for the gift. But the more you do, the best it is. I don't know if you remember the keyring we distributed at Odoo Experience. When we printed the Odoo keyring, we were wondering ourselves, should we distribute the keyring to everyone in the exhibition at the entrance? And at some point we said, no, we'll do something much better. We will give 3 keyrings to every employees, and we'll ask employees to distribute the keyring to the partners that they like or that they did something for the community. And the impact has been 2 times bigger. Because the people who received the keyring, there was someone, a developer from Odoo, told him, oh, here is an Odoo keyring, I like to conference, or thank you for your contribution, here is a keyring. For them, because it's personal, and because it's meaningful, it's way, way more important than just distributing keyring in all the people in the exhibition. And that's the reason why I don't like the gift at the end of the year, and that's actually I'm the faulty who canceled that. It's because I believe it's not a reward. It's just a benefit or a compensation or a salary increase or whatever. But it's not a reward. A reward should be personal and linked to something that the person should do. And I'm very happy to do a lot of rewards. You can, as I said, do as much expenses as you want for your team, as long as it becomes personal and you explain to the person why. And I'd like to move from giving rewards by the end of the year, a gift for everyone, to team leaders who congratulate and rewards the team way more. I think if we succeed to do that, we'll have more impact on the teams. You can come. And to introduce Aurore, you all know Aurore, obviously. maybe just to introduce you, her job and the job of her team is super hard. I mean, imagine that every day you have thousands of tickets incoming, and the tickets are people that are hungry against you because they have issues. And all the day after day, you have to handle the issues of these people that sometimes are not really friendly. Sometimes they are. And you have to handle all those things. So it's not an easy job. In terms of motivation, it's working in a kind of negative environment. It's really, really not easy. In a lot of companies, that's where the biggest churn are. In the support team, because that's where you have the more people leaving and quitting their job. In Aurore's team, only 1 person left in last year over 60 more or so people on her team. So she's doing a very, very good job in terms of motivation, team spirit. So I'd like you to explain us how you do. Maybe some examples or.
Yeah, you got me first because you told me that I will talk the afternoon. So
yeah, sorry.
And then I thought I had to talk about frustration, so it's better to talk about team spirit. Yeah, so first I think...
Maybe you should talk about... Let's talk about your frustration.
Yeah, so I think what is really working well with the support team is we are doing a very important job first at the recruitment to see if the people will fit with the team and will be there. We'll have so we have a very large scope. So we are not just selecting by your CV, but more what Fabien was explaining also, that more on your skills, your capability, and so and also your attitudes. And so the recruitment team is doing a very, very good job there first. So also to speak about numbers, last year we recruited more than 30 people, and we had to just stop the collaboration with only 3 of them. So that also is also very good. And then what we are doing also is make the team directly feeling within the team when they started. So the onboarding, I have an onboarding team which is doing a very important job also to make the newbies directly feeling part of the team. And the entire team is working that way. So we are all there to help each other. We are the support of the entire company worldwide, but we are first the support of each other. And this is how we are working, and so we are really caring about each other. You're never alone. It's complicated what we are doing, but you will never feel overwhelmed and alone in your challenge.
And you create also a lot of fun activities to be sure that the team spirit is good. Maybe if you can
this
give
is
some
also
example.
needed, yeah. So we have, like for example, during the lockdown, we did a lot of online after work. Also meeting, wearing costumes. It's just it seems silly like this, but in fact everybody was doing it, and we had a lot of fun with that also. Also, when a newbie was starting in the team, we were all presenting each other, and just instead of just saying I'm working for 10 years at Odoo, we were more saying what I like to drink or what I like to eat, and they were directly feeling they were feeling part of the team also. All the funny part that we are doing. We have a lot of after work now also. So last time it was on Friday. It was the carnival, and the winner was the one who put the nice costume of Fabien Pincars.
I didn't see that.
I will show you the video.
Okay. So yeah, I think creating the team spirit, having fun, it's not just about the job, it's more about having fun together. And at the same time, they work hard, because the volume of tickets, so it's really, there is a good balance.
A good balance. And also we were speaking about free food. That's true, that is working.
The what?
The free food. So that's we are not in Louvain-la-Neuve, so we don't have free food every day. But so doing that from time to time to the team also is a good incentive.
Ah, yeah. You go to Louvain-la-Neuve, or do you buy some food?
You buy something.
An expense, yeah.
Or sometimes we ask Jacques also to come.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Tu as encore un truc à dire?
Non.
No, thank you. So, quick summary, company-wide or team rewards are not reward but benefit. That's the reason why we ended the end of your gift. They can even become a due, then it becomes negative because it's always more. Our policy for benefits is to value everything in the salary configurator. So we'd like to have rewards from the team leaders because I think it has 10 times more value when the reward is linked to an achievement. Let's continue with the tips and tricks for leadership and management. If you have any question, feel free to raise your hand. If I don't see it, raise your voice too. But it's okay to interrupt, to ask question to me or to the ones who will be interviewed there. All right, so as a summary, we talked about a lot of things, how to handle frustration, rewards, motivation, your frustration, frustration of the team. We discussed about the new generations, firing people, recruiting people, promoting team leaders, and we'll continue with the tips and tricks, one by one. And now I continue with the work environment. I believe we and you did something very good. I mean, it's super cool to work at Odoo. We really succeeded to build an exceptional work environment. What's key now is to really fight to keep it the way it is. I mean, the more we will grow, we'll go from 2,000 people to 10,000 people in a few years. The more it's going to be complex to keep the culture, the passion, the purpose, and the team spirit where everyone helps each other at Odoo. But it's super important. And to talk about that, I will invite Nicolas to speak, and he will share with us his experience. And you can... I didn't get any applause like that. So, tu peux le prendre en fait.
Bonjour, je suis Nicolas.
So explain us, because 1 year ago you decided to leave Odoo, make an experience somewhere. So maybe you can explain what was your process. And
A year and a half ago, I decided to leave Odoo because I wanted to test something different. Odoo was my first job actually, as a business analyst. And when I started, we were only something like 12, 13 in the team. with Catherine, Greg, Antoine, and stuff, and we're dealing with a lot of different projects. So as business analysts, at first now you start with small projects, 25 hours back, CRM, sales, invoicing, pretty basic, but at the time it was more take an MRP system, MRP stock, pause after a month, 200 hours back, and deal with it. So it was a little bit complicated, and after four years, I decided to change a little bit from career, and I wanted to go to a bigger company with more structure. So I went and lived for PwC, for those who know, a big consultancy company, and I hated it. I lost everything related to flexibility, responsibility in terms of the task that I needed to do, the possibility to evolve in my job, being able to decide my own things to do, to move on with decisions and make sure that what I did was something I was truly believing in. And I went back to Odoo because I know that the culture that we have here always allows us to be able to choose what we want to do, to give opinion and ideas, and make sure that if we believe in it, we can build it with the other people in the team.
I think it's important because we have a lot of new members or even team leaders who only know Odoo, that no other experience. So can you share some example? You said no autonomy, or what do you feel where Odoo has autonomy or responsibilities that the others don't have, or at least the one you...
I think as business analysts, one of the big things that we have is we always use different tools to deal with the project we have. It doesn't stay always the same. It always evolves with the project and with the different people coming in the team. But when I was at PwC, it was always you take that template, fill in it, was something like very administrative work, and at the end you just, a piece in a machine, and you just work to do something that's always basic, always the same task. You are kind of a cadenas in a procedure, and it becomes very, very complicated to think that your work is something that is valuable for you.
Okay. I think it's important because the more we grow, the more we should try to not become like that. That means putting more process, more documents is good when it helps people, but when it constrains people, it's not good. We always have to find the right balance to keep the way to keep being how we are. Do you have other example or?
Not like that, no. For example, now as a project director, one thing I like is with the team we try to have a new project that is called Condo, and we try to set a little bit of process because we know for larger projects we need to have those processes to ensure the stability of the project over time. But in the end, we only keep a couple of tools, and afterwards we can deal with different things that we think are very useful for the project itself. And sometimes we use the client's tools, sometimes we use ours, but we stay flexible to ensure that the collaboration between our Spox and key users and us is always constant and is always something that we have trust in each other.
Yeah, that's something we'll discuss after, but when we design process for your team so that they get better, you always want to put more process or more tools. I always do the difference between the good and the bad process. The good process or the good tools are the ones that help the team perform better. Like RunBot is very good because you save time, you don't need to test everything manually and so on. The bad processes are the ones that are designed to control a team or to be sure they always do the same thing. Those are the kind of processes that we should avoid and let people decide based on common sense rather than forcing them to enter in a process or a specific tool. And that's something that the more we grow, the more we will fight against that because new managers, they always want to put KPIs and process on everything. Sometimes it's good when it helps people, sometimes it's bad when it creates constraints and rigidity in the way we work.
I think the last sentence I could say is we always say to our client, keep it simple, keep it standard, and I think we have to apply it for the processes we have internally. Let's keep it simple for the moment. Later on, we might need to get a little bit more complicated because we'll be bigger, but in the end, let's be flexible in the job we do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Nicolas. Okay, now something that's for me is very important is doing the extra mile. One thing we should avoid, and the bigger the companies are, the more they do that, is to have people that only care about what they do. only care about their task and not the others, and so on. And Odoo is not just something where we have to do tasks or something like that. It's a working environment with colleagues, and we all work for the same purpose, and we all depend on each other. If our colleagues do their job correctly, it's better for us. If I do my job correctly, it's better for my colleagues. And so I think it's important that we are always in a state of mind where we are not like, oh, it's not my job, or it's not me, or check with him. We are all always trying to help each other. It doesn't mean we can do everything, but at least we try. And for that, that's something we were quite successful up to now, so that's something we have to keep because the quality of the work environment and the company we are building depends a lot on the mindset of everyone's team. So you as a team leader, these are the kind of things where you should sometimes fight. We should not tolerate someone that just do the job for himself, like a salesperson that sells shitty things, so that that the service team will suffer for months. These are the kind of things we should not accept, and team leaders should always educate their team for that. And to illustrate the importance for everyone to do more than just their task, I'd like to invite Jacques on the scene. C'est toi. On va le faire en français. Alors c'est important parce que justement, je pense que tout le monde a vécu le fait que... Bah, d'abord, on t'a engagé pourquoi? On fait à midi, quoi.
Oui, au départ, on m'a engagé, on m'a dit, bah voilà, on va ouvrir un restaurant de collectivité sur le Val-à-Neuf. En fait, j'avais pas vraiment d'informations, je ne sais pas combien de personnes j'allais devoir servir. C'était 100, 150. Bon, pour finir, on se retrouve vendredi et ce midi d'ailleurs aussi de l'autre côté, parce que la cuisine tourne de l'autre côté aussi, malgré que je suis ici. Et c'est ça un peu l'idée que Fabien disait, il ne faut pas se contenter de son truc, mais non, moi je ne me contente pas que de mon petit boulot dont j'ai été
tu peux expliquer tout le truc que
nommé.
tu fais, tout ce que tu fais par exemple sur
Ouais.
côté.
Voilà, donc, moi j'ai été engagé pour m'occuper de la cuisine de Louvain-la-Neuve. Ben aujourd'hui, je suis ici avec vous pour essayer de vous rendre heureux. Mais la cuisine de l'autre côté tourne aussi. J'aurais pu dire, non, moi ça m'intéresse pas trop, j'ai assez avec parce qu'on a 350 couverts de l'autre côté aujourd'hui. Il y en a 150 ici, donc voilà, donc ça fait. Mais bon, voilà, moi je suis open à ça parce que ce que Fabien veut dire avec le mindset, c'est que moi je ne suis pas. Mon idée, c'est je ne suis pas le meilleur qu'un autre, mais je pense que j'aime. Je parle pour des autres cuisiniers, mais je pense que j'aime peut-être plus mon métier que d'autres cuisiniers. C'est peut-être pour ça que je fais plus de choses qu'on me demande à la base. C'est clair que je fais plus de choses pour lesquelles j'ai été engagé. Et je pense que si mon esprit est comme ça, et il y en a certainement beaucoup chez Odoo évidemment, le fait de proposer plus de choses qu'on ne sait faire, c'est parce que j'aime vraiment mon travail en fait. Donc automatiquement, pour moi, c'est pas un effort de faire plus. On me demande de faire AB, moi je suis presque à la lettre F, quoi. Voilà.
Hier soir, tu as fait les...
hier soir, j'ai fait les 10 ans de Charline, puis il y a plein, il y a les Odoo...
La semaine passée, c'était un roadshow à Gand.
C'est un roadshow à Gand, il y a un roadshow, puis j'ai fait Anvers aussi. Anvers, j'étais pas obligé non plus. On me dit, on va mettre des chips et des cacahuètes. J'ai dit, non, c'est quand même con, moi je suis là, je vais le faire. Donc voilà, donc c'est vrai, chips, cacahuètes, bon voilà, tout le monde sait faire ça. Donc moi j'ai quand même été engagé pour faire à manger, faire plaisir à tout le monde. Donc ce que je veux juste dire par là, c'est que moi j'aime mon métier, et quand j'aime mon métier, je le fais bien, je fais plus que ce qu'on me demande, et ça se répercute sur tout. Voilà, les gens voient que je suis content, et mon équipe travaille mieux, etc. Quoi. Donc
je trouve que c'est un bon reflet d'abord de la culture d'Odoo, mais c'est aussi un bon reflet de... quand quelqu'un fait bien son job, tout le monde en bénéficie. Parce qu'on a tous bien mangé ce midi. Mais en général, je crois que vous avez, en tout cas pour ceux de Louvain-la-Neuve, perçu la valeur ajoutée quand on a créé la cuisine. Ça change tout. Je pense qu'on aurait eu un cuisinier normal qui fait ses midis, un Sodexo-like cuisine. On n'aurait pas eu la même chose. Donc ça, c'est pas que la cuisine. Je pense que ça s'applique à tout. Quand on a un collègue qui est solide, qui peut aider les autres, etc., ça change tout dans le mindset et dans l'équipe. J'ai peut-être une question pour toi.
Oui.
Vous êtes combien en cuisine pour faire 350 plats
5.
5. Dans ton précédent job, vous étiez combien pour combien de plats
200 personnes, on était 8.
Et explique pourquoi, parce que ça c'est la culture Odoo aussi. C'est parce qu'il y a une efficacité forte aussi là-dedans.
Bon, déjà pour parler de la culture Odoo, déjà forcément je suis pas tout seul, parce qu'on est toute une équipe, parce que tout seul j'y arriverai pas. Et tous ces événements que je fais à l'extérieur, je dois quand même le souligner, mais il y a quand même beaucoup de gens qui viennent m'aider sans qu'on les redemande. Donc je pense que c'est vraiment l'esprit Odoo. Je parle Régis, Nicolas, enfin,
Caroline qui faisait le bar là-bas.
Caroline qui fait le bar là-bas. Enfin, je veux dire, pour moi, tout le monde, enfin, hier j'ai chargé à 11h du soir, pas pour parler, je m'en fous de faire des heures en plus, c'est pas ça la question. Moi j'aime ce que je fais, donc je le fais. Enfin, quoi qu'on va peut-être parler de ça. Non, je rigole. Non, je rigole. Bon, hier soir, 11h, j'ai chargé mon camion. Il y a 4 Odooers qui étaient là. On va t'aider, Jacques. Ils ont chargé mon bazar. Enfin, l'autre jour, j'en avais en cuisine, un petit déjeuner. Ils ont fait un cuisine. Je trouve que le mindset Odoo, c'est vraiment. Et si je suis comme ça, je pense. Bon, je pense que naturellement, j'étais comme ça, mais Odoo m'a beaucoup aidé à développer ce côté-là chez moi, le côté ouvert, open, et que tout le monde travaille ensemble. Pour moi, c'est une grosse famille, quoi.
Et Aline va faire des gâteries à
Et en plus, Aline va nous faire des petites gâteries ce soir, après le repas. Donc voilà. Donc, pour moi, Odoo, c'est pas un travail, et vous allez rigoler, mais pour moi, c'est vraiment une famille, quoi. Donc c'est vraiment, voilà, tout le monde s'entraide, et je pense que le positif amène le positif. Si moi je suis positif dans mon travail, mes collègues seront positifs, et c'est ça l'idée, quoi.
Je peux peut-être expliquer, par rapport à ma question, vous faites quand même 350 plats avec une petite équipe. Une des raisons pour laquelle il a fait ça, c'est qu'on a décidé de ne faire qu'un plat, toujours le même, chaque midi. Enfin, pas toujours le même, mais différent chaque midi, mais un seul plat. Et en fait, ça leur permet d'être plus efficace, de travailler mieux la qualité, plutôt que d'avoir 4-5 plats où les gens ont le choix.
Exactement.
Et ça, je pense, c'est une leçon de management aussi. C'est souvent ce qu'on dit chez Odoo, c'est on exécute plus vite que les autres. La raison pour laquelle on exécute plus vite, c'est aussi parce qu'on reste simple et on fait moins. Prendre des décisions de ne pas vouloir, parce que quand on a démarré, il y a eu plein de gens en interne qui disent ouais, ce serait bien d'avoir le choix et des machins, des machins. On est resté sur un seul plat, c'est plus simple, mais ça leur permet de faire de la qualité et d'être plus efficace, quoi.
Oui, exactement. Non, il a raison, forcément.
Voilà.
Je peux me permettre, j'avais encore un petit truc à dire. Je suis content que je suis là, je suis pas souvent là. Une fois que je peux parler, je m'exprime. On n'a pas toute la journée. Mais... Et je trouve que dans mon cas, je voudrais parler de reconnaissance, moi. Et je pense que si on a de la reconnaissance d'autrui, forcément, on est encore plus heureux dans son travail et on fait encore mieux son travail. Voilà, donc je ne sais pas si je peux passer un message, je sais pas, certainement les managers le font par rapport à leurs employés, j'en suis convaincu. Mais dans mon cas, moi j'ai une reconnaissance énorme. Je croise quelqu'un, Jacques c'était bon, Jacques c'était bon, Jacques, c'est Jacques. Je dis putain, mais c'est supérieur, que tu as envie de faire encore plus, quoi. Donc je ne sais pas comment ça se passe dans les autres équipes, j'imagine que tout le monde est content de travailler chez Odoo, mais peut-être que tout le monde n'est pas toujours récompensé ou leur chef lui dit pas oh, c'était bien, etc. Enfin, dans mon cas, moi ça m'aide beaucoup d'avoir la reconnaissance de tout le monde. Tout le monde dit c'était chouette, c'était cool. Putain, mais j'ai encore envie de faire 3 fois mieux, quoi. Ouais. Voilà, je trouve que la reconnaissance c'est important dans le travail.
C'est vrai, partout, il n'y a pas que toi.
Oui, tout à fait, j'imagine. Mais voilà, je parle de mon cas personnel, mais je trouve que c'est important, quoi.
C'est ce qu'on disait ce matin, justement.
Exactement.
Merci.
Merci Fabien. Merci.
Donc, voilà. And it's not just about recognition and doing the extra mile. It's also about we all work in the same boat. And for that, I will ask Antoine to come. And Antoine is interesting because he started as a consultant, and then he jumped to sales, and then he came back to the service team as project director. So he will explain us his experience and why he did that and what he learned from doing that.
Thanks. All right. So indeed, lots of change of teams. Just for the record, we have a group on WhatsApp that Greg created that is called the Traders. So that's where we have everyone that is switching teams. And I see here a few people that changed, that moved, and maybe sometimes outside of Odoo. And I think that's something that is not specifically going out of Odoo, but changing teams, changing the environment, and discovering new things is really something that you can benefit from, simply because you start learning new people, new job, new things. You are in a stressful environment sometimes, like you go outside of your comfort zone. It was really something that was interesting going in the sales world. That was a world that was like, okay, what are they doing? I think that maybe you said it to somebody else. Okay, well, as a consultant, sometimes you feel like, okay, they just sold it quite quickly, and I'm the consultant responsible for that, for the project after delivering it, while maybe it was sold a bit too fast. But when you go on the other side, you realize what is a job and how much effort is put in the qualification and how much effort it is to have someone to sign.
And how difficult it is. It's
yeah,
not just about selling.
Even starting having the first call, I remember Fabien came on the sales floor, told me, hey Antoine, you need to start calling. I was like, okay, but I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know how to pitch. I don't know how to. Those were things that I had to learn. And it was fun because I was also, and that's something that is super important here, I was very, very much helped in that. We had Pav. Well, Pav was my manager at the time. Then Seb. And it was really like if I needed help to understand something, it was a completely new world to me. it was yeah, I was really helped by a ton of people. And now when I see sales people, former colleagues, I don't know where is Petra. I just saw her with a bright smile this morning. Don't know if you're still there, but it was a real joy to see you again as a former team member. It was, well, super cool. Yeah.
And do you have because I do believe a lot in evolution. As our role as team leader is to make everyone evolve, and clearly changing your position or working in the fiduciary subsidiary is a very good way to learn more and evolve. And do you have any advice for people that hesitate switching?
And the first thing would be stop hesitating. That would be the first advice. You know, sometimes when you hear older people, they say, okay, I regret more the things that I didn't do rather than the things I did. So I think it's important to put yourself in the position where you feel like you will be helped and you will learn a lot. And if you hesitate, just talk to some other people. Like I remember I bothered Fabien during 1 month before making my decision of moving to Brussels, because I needed some guidance. But in the end, it was all already written, because I could feel like, okay, I had that drive, I wanted to try it. And if you feel like you are in the same position, just go talk, ask your managers, get some, I would say, get some help. But in the end, realize that it will be for sure, like 90% of the case, even maybe 100% of the case, it will be a super good opportunity. You will learn so much different things that you don't have in your job at the moment. As you said, subsidiary, new job, sales to consultant to R&D, whatever. Really.
And it works for you, but also for members of your team.
Yeah.
I've seen in the past some managers who try to keep their team. I mean, when you have good elements, you want to keep them in your team. I think as team leader, we should do the opposite. We should promote people to move, because our goal is to make them evolve. And if we make them move from teams to team, we will help them evolve faster. So don't try to protect or to keep your team. If someone in your team is willing to change, push for it, even if you will lose, it means you will lose a good element. At the end, the goodwill of the people are more important than the short-term success of the team.
Yep. Plus the person will leave, I guess. See if
and
we keep him.
If having experience in different departments know what to do, is there anything you can think of when it comes to inter-department collaboration?
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Jack that told that, but I think there's something that we need to learn a bit if we don't have that yet. Is the empathy that we have when we are in the same team. We are together with team leaders, with coaches in the consultant department, and you feel like you help each other a lot. And I think that this way of working with your team, you should apply it to Odoo in general, in the sense that, of course, you don't do exactly the same job as a salesperson or someone in R&D, and sometimes you can feel like, okay, I'm frustrated. We discuss about the frustration as well for some reason, but put yourself in their shoes. Try to understand that it's much more about the context rather than the person, and you really realize that you would work more or less the same way. And it's really a matter of putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. I think it's also super important in the job that we have.
Any final word, or it's good?
No, it's good.
Okay, thank you. All right, and on the same topic, maybe Sébastien, if you can join on the stage. Maybe you can come with very explicit example on where collaboration or doing the extra mile more than just your job, because we all have this image of the salesperson who sells just for his commission in traditional companies, and you actually do the exact opposite. So maybe you can explain.
But I think first of all, most of the people have an image of the sales, you know, like just working for the commission and selling shit because it's okay. At the end of the day, they will have money and that's it. It's sometimes the case, huh? So don't get me wrong. But no, the reality behind is that obviously whenever you try to sell and try to get a customer, you put all the energy to really convince them to get Odoo and to start working with the solution. And sometimes there are some miscommunication, I would say, or sometimes, you know, what they expect from day one is not exactly what happens behind, and we see it with big project as well, when we see the difference between ROI analysis and actually ROI analysis is the analysis that we do at the very beginning of the project. Realize that the change between the first day and 3 months after is huge. And I think it's exactly the same for every single project that we sell. There are always expectations, and the expectations are actually evolving. And we see that a lot. And of course, we see also a lot of salespeople that are salespeople and also consultants and everyone basically doing great effort to actually do the extra miles and do an extra demonstration, do an extra analysis, or do every single time.
Or support after the sale.
Exactly, support after the sales. And I think that's really critical and something that is really nice. And sometimes I think we evaluate the value of that. Bringing really the extra mile is the key in a company like Odoo.
Okay. I don't have questions for you, so I don't know if you have something else to say or.
No, I think it's nothing special.
Okay, thank you. So now I'd like to talk about something else, which is micro versus macro. Sometimes we think that micromanagement is bad or macromanagement from the top, the big picture is better. So I'll tell you what I think and what I learned over the past. What I think is that I don't say micromanagement because management is a necessary evil. It's not always positive. But micro review, getting work into the details with the team, it's much better than macro management. What I mean by that is that if you do a graph, and in vertical you have the level of implication you do on a task or sales with a customer or development task in R&D. From the big picture, just understand the basics to the very details, and in horizontal, how many projects or people you work with. And there are two ways as a team leader to work. And I believe there are two kinds of people. There are the manager, they trying to control everything, and they follow pretty much every project, but they don't go into the details. That's the orange in my graph. And then you have the team leaders. They go into the details, they know the topic, they can develop or they can sell or they can do service, but because they go deeper in the project, they don't have time to go into that much details on all the projects. I believe at Odoo what we should do is to have more leaders than managers. I think everyone should be leader, and so it's a very good thing to be able to go into the details because that's when you have something to bring to the team. I mean, managers can train the team because the only way to coach and train is to know the details and go and sometimes help the person do it. Unfortunately, when you do that, it also means that there are projects or people where you don't have time to get involved in because you cannot do everything. And that is okay. Don't be stressed on the fact that you don't control everything, you are not aware of everything. That is good. You should be stressed about spending time with the people who need it or with the projects that are strategic. You choose where you bring your own value, but you don't need to try to control everything. I believe it's a bias that some managers have that we shouldn't have at Odoo, because we should focus more into being leaders rather than being managers. Is it clear? If it's not clear or if you have questions, raise your hand. So sometimes people are afraid of that because it means that there are some areas, these areas, where you basically do nothing. And there are some areas where you go into the details. But that's the only way to coach and make people evolve, is to go into the details. Otherwise, if you just become a management from the big picture, all you can do is just controlling what people do, but you cannot coach them and make them become better. Clear? So don't try to control everything. Let it go. It's good, actually, if you are not aware of everything. Focus on moving forward on the bottlenecks or the people who need it or the projects that are strategic. You choose your areas, but focus on being those areas. It's also the only way for you to keep being an expert. Because if you only manage from the big picture and you do that for 3 to 4 to 5 years, at some point you won't be able to do the job anymore, and so your value for the team will be very little. On the other hand, if you continue going into the details and involved, you will become more and more expert in the area, and then you will have value to provide and to teach to the team. And sometimes I see some team leaders that are afraid of some of these signs. I sometimes hear people who say, I was not aware of that. It's bad, I was not aware, I should have known, or we should have said me, or we should have communicated about that. I believe it's a good sign. When people do something I'm not aware of, whether it's a thumb down or bottom up, by the way, I'm happy, actually. It means people have autonomy. And it's a good thing. You should not fight against that. If you are not aware of something, that's good. If someone in your team do something without asking you for the permission, that's a very good sign too. It's a sign of autonomy. So don't try to have the validation or the permission on everything. all you will do by doing that is reducing the autonomy. It's actually, even if it could be frustrating to detect because you notice it when it failed, it's okay. It means that the team has autonomy. It's the price to pay to have autonomy in your team. And also, if someone bypasses, whether it's top-down or bottom-up, it's a good sign. It means people are free to talk to each other in the company. We don't want people to go from there to there in order to speak. We prefer people to speak with them. If you have a problem with someone in the support, just talk to him. Don't go to your manager so that he can talk to their manager. So that in most of the company, you have to go up and then go down. We don't want that. It's good if people work directly with each other. So we should not be afraid of bypassing, whether it's a top-down or a bottom-up. It's actually a sign of autonomy and responsibilities. We should promote that. And if one of the things you don't like it, I've seen that with some young team leaders, just work on yourself. Don't ask your team to change, just work on yourself to accept that and recognize that it's a sign of autonomy rather than a team member that does not respect you. Clear? And for that, we'll not for this, but I will call Yannick now on the stage. And Yannick will talk, maybe I should explain, but he has one of the team in R&D that is the most productive. They are super productive. And I believe it's one of the reasons it's the way they are organized, and he will explain us how he is organized. By the way, if you are paid by the end of the month, it's because of his team, because he did the salary configurator. And to show you the productivity, when we announced this with Alessandro, we all thought it was not possible. We recruited one extra HR payroll officer because we thought it won't work directly and so on. And they were so productive that they released on time, and we had basically no issue. So we had to reallocate the time of the HRs. Maybe if you can explain how you're organized and or why your team is so productive.
Yeah, so our team is one of the most productive. It doesn't mean a lot of things, but it means that we are delivering a lot of tasks and to improve the applications. So it's difficult to compare a line of code on the framework and a line of code on a functional application, but we are delivering a lot. The reason why is that we structured the team into, we split it into 5. It was probably due to the pandemic, because it has become too difficult for me to handle all the tasks. And before I was reviewing everything and discussing, testing the tasks with all the developers. And it has become too difficult because of the number of tasks, the size of the scope, the functional scope that we handle. And because also of the fact that the new people, the newcomers were working on Discord, we didn't see them. And they were always asking questions to me because I was the only guy that they know. Okay, so one of the team had an idea and said, "Why don't you split the team into 5 and gives more responsibilities to us? So delegate." And I was a little bit stressed at the beginning because I was saying, "Okay, if something is done wrong, maybe it will be my fault," and I didn't want people to be stressed to handle this charge too. And in fact, it went quite easily because I trusted the people because they were smart and they were convinced that they could do it without too much help. And if they need help, in fact, they ask me to check something with them, take some decisions. And it's like the graph that Fabien showed just before. I don't work on all the tasks. I don't take all the decisions, and they are autonomous. All these sub teams are working together from, I don't know, 4 to 8 people. And when they have a question, they have already think about it. And it's much more easy for me, and also it's much more enrichissant.
Learning experience.
It's fulfilling for them because they learn a lot of things. They learn to see how other people are working, and so they are improving a lot in a short amount of time. And also we are working on, for example, the HR applications, and on the other side we are working on the service applications. If we develop something on project, it has influences and on the HR application, for example, because we are using the employee contracts or whatever. And as we are working in a big team split into 5 smaller teams, they are discussing with each other, but it's not difficult for them because they are from the same team, and there is a little ecosystem in which they are happy to help other teams when there is a rush and there are some tasks to finish. So it's very interesting to work in this team, and people are behaving correctly with each other. And the fact that we delegate to people, that they are autonomous, and that then they can speak freely with me or with other teams. It's a good environment in which they are developing quite easily and quickly.
And how is your day-to-day then? You spend time with each, or you go on the most complex task, or?
Usually I imagine myself doing something, and after 1 hour there is one guy arriving with an issue, or I don't know, performance issue, a security breach that we found, or something that should be reviewed for yesterday. It happens with all kind of issues that we can have on a daily basis, and I stop what I'm doing and I'm trying to help them, and so
you ensure they are not blocked.
No, yeah, to ensure that they are not blocked, and also making the appraisal, the reviews, and so there is a lot of human work behind that, because to keep people involved, we have to speak with them, to check that everything is okay, to not to reward them for nothing, but if they do something that is impressive or that is very well executed, it's also part of the job to say to them, okay, you did a good job and we are proud of you.
And I think just to avoid confusion, your 5 team is not like there is 5 managers with team, it's more 5 group of people working together.
Yeah, the reason why we didn't split totally the teams was that people were not very confident to assume the functional responsibilities and the human responsibilities. So the idea was that I was handling the HR responsibilities and they were the technical technical expert for those applications.
Régis? For the screen?
And so, yeah, I don't know what to add about it. So the team is split into 5, but we are more all working together. And the idea why we split also the team was to avoid being a huge stack of developers, not knowing what were the applications on which we were working on. And so it was to improve also to avoid people to be frustrated about not knowing the other applications.
Okay. I think we can do encore des trucs à dire. So maybe we can call Jerry for a different purpose on the stage. And I asked Jerry to come because I think he is a good example of lead by example. And he will explain that he's a bit shy, so I don't think he will like to say he's good, but he's very good. And maybe you should explain us how did the spreadsheet project start, and then how did the whole project start, and then how Blockdom start.
Well, I think the spreadsheet project is interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
My main motivation was to prove Fabien wrong. First, but
no, I agree with the approach.
We had a technical disagreement about how to start the spreadsheet project, and I think he really underestimated the strength of our JavaScript teams. He wanted to start from an existing open source library, and I think that people working on the project were very good and were able to do it from scratch, and it would be a better foundation. So I had to take, finally, I had to take a few days on my free time to make a quick prototype to prove Fabien that we could match the existing product very easily and in a better way.
And in 3 days you did close to equal to the other open source.
On some part, yes. It was. I think it was. I'm proud of that prototype. It was a very good start. Thank you.
And that's a good example of why I like our team leaders to be team leaders, the best on the job, rather than just manager. Because if we would have had a traditional manager, he would probably have said yes to me. He would probably have designed tasks for the team, and it would have taken months more. And
But-
because he's so good, he did the prototype, proved the job, and created the foundation so that the team can go faster after.
Yeah, but he was wrong, so I had to do something about that. But anyway, that's just an example, an outlier. But I think the point is that it's important to be able to do the job and to do the job. So I'm very proud of being part of my team and not. I don't consider myself to be above the team and better. Maybe I'm better at some decision at some part, but.
But you have experience.
Yeah, now I'm experienced. I know. I'm starting to know what I'm doing, so it's good. And also, I think this leads to a virtuous cycle when you work on such a. When you lead by example, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show my team what I consider being good work, what's my baseline for something that's good, and. In return, they do excellent work, and they hold me accountable as well. So all my code is I submit myself to the same team process. So for example, in R&D, what we do, we work with code reviews. So each code is supposed to be reviewed by someone from the team, and I do it myself. And by doing that, I know that it will not let me take the lazy way. If I have an easy solution which is wrong and the good technical solution, when they review my code, they will tell me that it's not acceptable. And I don't want to give them that opportunity. So I try to do a better job. And in return, they do it the same. So we have, I think, a really nice way of working that it works very well for us, at least.
Yeah, I think it's important that managers are very hands-on. It unlocks a lot of things when you can do that. I do the same. When we launch a new roadshow, usually I do the first or second roadshow myself so that I can feel all the issues and really understand the problem and then design it better and then coach the team to move on the next roadshows with the same.
Yeah, it's not really deep inside that doing it at least some part of the time makes us better.
Otherwise,
at taking decisions, for example, I think it's really a good way to work. Definitely.
And you said also something that was important for you is to just accept mistakes. Maybe you can share something.
Yeah, I think it's not really a specific story, but we talked about leading teams, and I think I have a counterexample in my private life. My spouse has a very terrible boss. And in her at work, mistakes are not accepted. And it terrifies her that she may make a mistake, and it will cause her to be fired, or I don't know. And I think we need to recognize, but that's what we do. We recognize that shit happens, and we need to take that into account. Maybe whenever something happens, to understand why it happened and not bash the specific developers who did the mistake, because it's not alone. We work as a team, and maybe someone who reviewed the code should be blamed as well. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we try to change to change our team process, maybe to make sure that that specific mistake does not happen again, or that kind of mistakes does not happen again. But obviously, it's up to the specific case.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed in a lot of companies is people don't do things because they are afraid of what the boss would think. But most of the time, the boss is okay or happy with it.
Yeah.
It's just that people are paralyzed by the fact that they don't want to try or to take a risk.
Yeah, that's very important. I want to emphasize that failure is okay. You don't want to fail, obviously, but you want to experiment. You want to express your creativity, and then people will do it as well. And I'm very happy when in my team when they show me some impressive stuff sometimes, and it's a very good result for Odoo as well.
Okay, maybe a last thing about Block DOM. It's the fastest virtual DOM that you developed.
Well,
it was the same way than the spreadsheet. You developed like a prototype.
Yeah, that's maybe more like about what Jacques said, that he liked his job. Yeah. It's the same for me. I like what I do. So I took sometimes to work on a specific implementation of the low level user interface system, and I'm very happy about the result. Now it's in production in Odoo in the OWL framework, and it's the fastest virtual DOM system in the world, and I'm very happy about that. But that's more personal thing.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Next one will be Nicolas after. Okay, what I think is important if we want to keep having people that like their job and what they do, especially with the new generation, is to keep communicating about the purpose and the direction where we are going. We can give autonomy to the people, but it only works if they all know where we should go. If the strategy is not clear, if the direction is not clear, you can give as much autonomy as they want, they won't go into the right direction. So communicating on the purpose is very important. So repeating again and again the purpose, the culture, or how to align people, we never do it too much. I am saying that because I have the feeling that every year at Odoo Experience I repeat the same thing again and again. But I think it's important because we always have new people forget from time to time, so it's okay to repeat. That was more like a note for myself, but you probably have the same kind of thing in your team where as we will grow to 10,000 people, we have to continuously train and say the same message to be sure that it's understood. And if you don't know about that, just a reminder, in the survival guide, there is a very good chapter about why we do Odoo. And it's good to reread it from time to time. It really explains why we do Odoo, and I strongly believe that it changes a lot for SMEs. Okay, now we'll talk about what motivates people. But before I will talk about why the culture matter, we have two types of culture at Odoo. We have the culture of the people and we have the culture of the execution. It's two different things. But first, the culture, it matters for everyone because at the end we spend, 20-30% of our time at work. So it's super important. So it's very important that we do it with a purpose, building something that is awesome for the others, in a fun environment where we can continuously learn and evolve. That is very important because we'll spend 20 or 30% of our time at work. So we want to create that kind of environment, and the environment is how people behave with each other, and that's the culture. It also matters for the company because the culture defines the working environment, and we need a working environment, especially for what we try to do, that allows innovation. That's what Jerry was saying, that to accept the failure. If you don't accept the failure, you kill innovation because people don't try. And we also want to do something very complex, so we need to execute faster and have a good performance in order to reach the top of the mountain. So it matters for the culture and for the people. In terms of people, what's important for us, you know it, but it's autonomy, responsibilities, and evolution. These are the things that are the most important. If you ask someone, why are you leaving your job? There is a big chance that it's one of the three. Because they have the feeling that they don't learn anymore, because they have the feeling that they struggle, like Nicolas said, because they have no autonomy, or because they don't like their boss because it doesn't give responsibilities. But if you ask people why they leave, most of the time it's one of these three things. So these are the things where we should focus and give to our team. Autonomy is what? It's accepting to don't command and control, but trust them, like Yannick was saying. Let them express themselves or do things. You don't even need to check what they do. It also means often to talk in terms of responsibilities rather than talking in terms of tasks. It's much better if you learn to give responsibilities rather than tasks. So let them think about how to solve the issue. And usually, that's some of the manager doesn't understand, but influence is independent from hierarchy. Don't think that because you are a position in the hierarchy, it means that people should ask validation or praise you or whatever. Influence is not that. Especially at Odoo, usually influence are to the ones that provide the most value, the most knowledgeable, the expert in their domain. That's where the influence comes from. Hierarchy is just administrative level of who is doing the appraisal or things like that, but it's not influence. At least it should not be. And also something that is important is that, especially with the young people are not used to get autonomy. I am always surprised with the young kids that goes out of the university how low autonomy they have. I mean, I think that schools are killing autonomy to the kids, and they didn't learn to do things on their own. And we sometimes have someone that comes to my office and says, "Can I buy this?" And it's something like 50 euros, like a barcode scanner. I mean, we are adults. We know if we can buy a barcode scanner or not. And a tip, if you have people like this in your team, is when they come and ask the validation for something, don't answer. Because if you say yes, you can buy the barcode scanner, they will come tomorrow to ask something else. One of the things I do often is to say, I don't know, you decide. And you force them to decide. Most of the time, people know the answer. They know the answer to what they ask. Just push them to take their autonomy, especially with the new employees or that are not used to that, or the ones that are used to big corporation before, where they couldn't decide on their own. We have to teach them to decide how to do. Autonomy does not mean lack of guidance. People need guidance, and actually, the more the better. So there is a fine balance between leaving an autonomy, but at the end, providing a lot of guidance. And usually the balance, you can find it right in this way, by explaining the why. That's guidance, instead of asking what to do and let them the freedom to think about how to do it. The right balance is also about, if you don't agree, you have to argue rather than commanding. It's always tempting as a team leader to say, no, just do that, I don't have time. But you should avoid that at all costs, because that kills autonomy. So you have to go through the long path of discussing until you both agree. Whoever is right, we don't care. At the end, what matters is that we are all aligned. And being assertive is usually bad for the motivation and learning. And for that, I will call Nicolas on the stage. And I think, when did you join Odoo for the first time? Because he left and came back also.
Yeah, I
it
came
was
back
10 years ago? More?
12 years ago.
12 years ago.
In January 2010.
So we have another dinosaur.
Yeah, some of you were not born at that time, I think. But
and maybe you can explain how were the beginning at that time.
It was messy. Well, just the first interview was funny also because you just had the new year, I think, and it was full of Jupiler everywhere in the meeting room over there. So I think that it was a lot of mess, but it was a lot of autonomy also that we had, because we had a lot of things. I was recruited to deal with the recruitment of partners, and basically we were still a services company at that time. We were not yet a publisher, and basically we were doing a lot of things, I think.
Yeah. And I think it was not bad. Like, if we compare to today, when someone joins, he has the e-learning for 2 weeks, the certification, the scale-up business game.
Yeah.
What did you had when you arrived?
Nothing.
And what did you have to do as first responsibilities? Do you remember? Or?
I think after 2 weeks and a half, I had to make a presentation in front of all the partners we had at that time. So it was after 2 weeks and a half. I think that now we don't even, well, they have not finished the onboarding.
And was it good or was it bad? I mean, did you?
Oh, it was a great experience because it was a lot of stress, and I had no option. I didn't want to fail, so I had to do everything I had to just to succeed. And I think that I learned a lot of this. And I think that it gives a lot of motivation to people when you make them do things that they think they won't be able to do. The more stressful the situation is, the more thankful they will be, and the more proud they will be about what they've done.
Yeah, one example we always have is the webinars.
Yeah.
There are some people that are not comfortable with doing a webinar in front of thousands of people. And I pushed a lot of people, and you probably did the same with your team, to say in 2 weeks you have to do a webinar.
Yeah.
They are stressed, but I think it's very important, because at the end, what matters is not for the team to be comfortable. What matters is for a team to learn and evolve. And it's a very good way to evolve, to give maybe too much responsibilities, but it's way better than giving too few.
Yeah, indeed, definitely, and same goes for the roadshow. I see a lot of people. Well, they're super stressed because they will have to do the presentation in front of 200-300 people, and they're super stressed, and then they are so relieved and but also very proud of what they've done.
Yeah, and it's important for a team leader to recognize that evolution, autonomy, responsibilities are sometimes against being comfortable, but we always have to go for the making people evolve, because that's better for them, even if it's a little bit less comfortable than having a full learning path which is easy to follow.
Yeah, and I think that we had some cases like this where we have a super big deal to work on, and people in the team maybe don't think that we will be able to make it, and I think that this is the role of the manager to well, to help them, but to put them on front of the customer, and well, to make sure that they sign the deal, not you as a manager.
Okay. Thank you, Nicolas. À moins d'autres choses plus.
Non, ça va.
Okay.
I can stay if you want, but.
So we talked about, I don't remember, autonomy and guidance, super important. Evolution is very important too. When I define team leader, I often say that what I expect from a team leader is to make, for him or her, to make the team evolve. And that's basically that. It's not about budget, it's not about controlling, it's not about management, it's about make your team become better. It's good for them. So, as Jerry said, if someone failed, don't blame him, but help him and ask yourself what inside you missed to provide. And a good way for very specific targeted issues, sometimes I do that, sometimes give some books. Like if someone is stressed or into organizing his activities, giving the book about getting things done. If someone is not comfortable with the sales pitch, give him a book about never split the difference, and he will feel like, I want to try this kind of technique to negotiate. So giving books sometimes unlock, but for very specific things, I'm just not giving books for the pleasure of giving books, but can unlock some weakness in people. So responsibilities and purpose, it's always important that we explain why we do that. So we deliver all the features for SMEs, all they need at a low cost. That's the basics of what we do. We want to help companies and have this technology become affordable. That's why our price did not increase despite the inflation. That's why our success pack is quite cheap for the market, because all those things goes back to the same purpose of the company, is that we want to really help companies by having software that is accessible and that fix all their issues. We talk about the rewards and regret. And by the way, it works. So these are the statistics of people who left Odoo last year. And in Belgium, we had 4% of the employees that left the company. I don't know if you can imagine, but traditionally in large companies, they are between 35 and 40%. We are in total at 13% of the people who left the company. 4 people quit, and 9% have been fired. We have a higher average of people being fired because we recruited a lot. And when we recruit 1,000 people, unfortunately, we do our best, but we do some mistake. And so the KPI is a bit high but it's still 13% is unseen off on the market. It's super, super, super good. And a lot of them will come back. Not the ones who were fired, but the ones who quit. I don't have numbers about that. But there are a lot of them. If Sébastien, from the people who came on the stage, there were Sébastien, Nicolas, Nib, the two Nicolas, Anthony. So yeah, we just on the ones on the stage, there were already 4 or 5 of them. In the US, it seems very high, but you have to imagine that in San Francisco, because that's where we are, even the large companies like Google, they were at 51% a few years ago. So for the area, it's okay-ish, because they have the great how do we say that? The great people living, the great resignation wave in the US, that we suffer less from that in Europe. But it's still okay. It's not perfect, but it's still okay. The reason why we didn't fight is because we get a subsidy to not fire people. That's the way they worked during the crisis. But all in all, it works. I mean, we developed a culture which is amazing. And among the 4% that left the company, these are the reasons why they left. From these 4%, so it's not a lot, 6% it was because of the salary. So 6% multiplied by 4%, it doesn't do that much. 44% because they wanted to change the career, work in a completely other position. 18% is for personal reason, and 31% we don't know. It's others. You have to read along the line. It's most of the time when people quit their job, they don't really say why it is. Like if it's because of salary, some people won't tell you it's because I want a bigger salary. It feels bad. So they might tell you, yeah, because I have a better position. So yeah, we are not sure the statistics are correct, but at least that's what they said when we asked them. No. Maybe the HR, no, you should ask. I don't know. We could check, but I don't know. From the ones that we find, it's a lot of them are younger ones, but for the 4%, I don't know. Okay, responsibilities. So some lessons for the recent failure. So we said that we should give a lot of responsibilities to the people. We have been extremely good at doing that. I mean, people evolve a lot. When you start as a quick start consultant, you are directly a project manager. So you have your own project. You are not part of a team of 5 people and decide everything, and you have to follow the canvas, as Nicolas said. But still, we are not perfect. And there are areas where we can improve. One of them is over the past months, I would say, no, it's not a year, but close to a year now, we failed to give enough responsibilities, especially for the service team, the quick start consultant. What we did is we recruited too much, and at the same time we had less sales of quick start service, so we didn't have enough project for all the people we recruited. So we failed on giving responsibilities. So even though our culture is to do that, we have to recognize that we are not perfect. We do our best. So we had to take action. We took action a bit late. We did things, but too late, in my opinion. So to give you an idea, we reduced the recruitment from 15 per month to 2 per month, which is way too low compared to the new projects that are coming. But at least we'll have less consultants so that we can give more projects to them and they have more to do. It's very bad to have someone that have not enough to do, and we failed to give as much responsibility as they deserved. And because it's not enough, we decided yesterday, I think, that we'll do a big discount in March on the success pass for the quick start. So we want the salespeople, even though we will lose money on that, probably the margins will be negative on this service, but we want the salespeople to sell a maximum of success pack at 50% discount, so that we increase the volume, so that we can give more projects to the new people. They used to be when Nicolas started, the consultant, they get 10 projects within the first 2 weeks. Now they receive 3 projects after 1 month. It's not enough. So we'll fix that, but we know we are not perfect. What's important is that we recognize that and we take action and improve. Yeah, and I don't know who said that, but you're right. One of the thing we said too is to ask them to help in the support tickets, which is a good way of flexibility between teams. You don't see that in large companies often, that a full department treats their job to help another department. And a lot of these consultants, I think it's 15 of them. Is Aurore or Catherine? 40 of the consultants agreed to help the support team because they don't have enough project to do tickets to reduce the load for the support team. So in between, we find some of the things. It's not perfect because they have been recruited to the project and now they have a mix of project and support, but we find solutions. Okay, one more thing is that one of the main issues we see is that young managers, they want to put KPIs on everything. And one thing we should set, KPIs are sometimes good. I'm not saying it's bad. There are good KPIs that are useful because they make us learn something. But management by KPIs is very bad. Having an approach of management where we try to measure people, it's very bad. So that's something that forget I put this slide. I thought I would have removed it, but one thing I said is never judge people based on KPIs. And for this, I have a story from San Francisco, I think, with Frederick. And at the time, the the team leader of the consultant in San Francisco wanted to put KPI to measure the efficiency of the consultant. And so so I told him, no, we don't manage people by KPI, but still he did it. And I'm okay because it was autonomy, but and so what happened is that he started to define KPIs to measure people. So there were KPIs about the completion of the project on time, the timesheet billing rate, and the satisfaction of the customer. I don't remember what was the KPI, but it was along the lines these 3. But maybe there were 5, or I don't know. And he tried to rate the team with these KPIs. And what happened is that at the same time, I just arrived 1 year before in San Francisco, and we had not enough consultants in San Francisco, so I needed to bring experience from Belgium to San Francisco at the time. And so I asked Frédéric Gilson, he's still working for a partner now, to join the San Francisco team so that he can bring all his experience. It was one of the best consultant we had in Belgium. He went to San Francisco and to help the team and bring knowledge because he had several years of experience at Odoo, and he was one of the best. And then we did all these KPI. We started to measure the consultant with the KPI, and Frederick was the worst guy. All his KPI were very bad. And so the reason is that because he was super good, we assigned him all the shitty projects. All the customers who complained, who were difficult, where we were struggling for 6 months or 1 year, have been assigned to Frederick because it was like the guy coming from Belgium to help us. And so all the KPIs were very wrong. And that's what happened when you start managing people with KPI. It's not fair because it's super subjective, the way you interpret them, the result with them. I believe as team leader, you know who is good in your team. You don't need KPIs to measure people. If you need a KPI to measure someone in your team, there is a problem. Normally, when you work with people, you directly know who's good and who's not. Otherwise, it means you don't really work with them. And then you can spend more time doing the job with them. So that's very important. There are some KPIs that are good. I mean, the revenue we do every month, it's a necessary KPI because it allows us to know if we can recruit or not. So there are some KPIs that are good, but most of the time, what we need is to have access to the information, all the data in Odoo have the access, so that when we have a question, we can check something and recruit. What we don't need is to check the same KPIs every week or every month to manage the people. That doesn't help in anything. So try to avoid judging. It's tempting when you are a young team leader to try to do the manager and measuring things. Don't forget about that. When you do assessment with your team, if you give goals, it's okay to have goals that are subjective. It's okay to tell him, on this task you have been not good, you should have done this, this, this. I want you to improve and learn JavaScript. These are the things that are not measurable. It's just learn JavaScript. And it's okay if it's subjective, if you rate people on subjective things. I think it's better than rating people on subjective things than rating them on KPIs. Clear? And then we have KPIs is only useful if it's actionable. And it's not about the KPI, it's measuring something, I would say here. It's only useful if it's actionable. What do I mean by actionable? Is before measuring it, let's say you measure something like the number of branches that are red or green in Runbot. It's a stupid KPI, but it's just one example. Or the satisfaction client satisfaction on a project. What would you do differently if the result is 7.6 or 9.4? Will it change something? Will you take a different decision if the result of the percentage of client that says I like the service or not is 9.4 or 7.6? And most of the time, 90% of the time where people wanted to measure, you probably won't do anything differently. You probably say we need to improve the customer satisfaction. We need to do a good service. Whatever we measure, it doesn't change on what we should do as an action. So in this case, don't waste time measuring the KPI because at the end the result will be the same. It's always better to provide better customer service. What matters is to find where in the customer service you are not good. And usually this is done not by quantitative results like KPI, but by qualitative information like talking to the customer, reviewing a few tickets, or things like that where you see the reason why we have issues. Because measuring something takes time and it's usually boring. Especially if you ask your team to measure something, there is someone who will waste time to do a spreadsheet and nobody likes to do that. So be sure when you do it, it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it. Huh? Sometimes you really don't know if doing this or that, especially in performance issues. When you improve something, it's always a trade-off. You improve here and you decrease there. So sometimes you need to measure to improve, but most of the time, and especially if it's for management reasons, don't waste time doing that. Focus on the team, on qualitative results, or talking to customer. You will have better information to decide what to do. And I do believe that companies that embrace management by KPIs, like Google, they do big market analysis to change a color or a font size, and they do A/B testing on everything. I think they slowly drift into more irrelevancy. I do believe that common sense is stronger than any measure you can do, especially because even when you measure the KPI, the interpretation of the KPI you do is super subjective. So it's okay if you don't measure a lot of things, just base your decision based on common sense, it's going to be stronger. And for this or for another thing, I will call Alexandre on the stage. So maybe you can explain what your story, because you started with a team of 10 and then you are now a team of nearly 100.
Yes.
So you can explain what's your story.
So as you are, so we all started with a really small team of 2, 3, 4 people, and then within the 4 years, I grew up with a team of today 96 people, so close to 100 people. And so the difficulties about the KPI is that when you have a big team, at one point you lose a little bit about the groundwork, where you have the feeling that you need to find KPIs to be sure that everything goes well, to be able to measure every aspect of your team. Where for myself, it was counterproductive, because as for people who knows me, I'm more of like a people management manager or people leader. So I like to make people evolve more than just see how many demos, how many calls, how many sales, yes, they have done. And by doing so, I create more pressure, I create more complexity within the team, with a team of 90 people, which is maybe something you can do a bit more with a smaller team and maybe less with a bigger team. And why so is because you go against the way against the way I was, for example. And so I was trying to do something I was not used to do, or something that I was not good at. Like for people who knows me, numbers is not my strong suit. And I was trying to become someone who's more looking at numbers and less at people. And I do think that he had like, not as a, how can I say that? It was not as, I think if I would have maybe managed more the people, which is the people who was under me, and the sales and the team leaders, because for you we have 14 team leaders, and every team leader has 4 to 8 people to manage. I think I would have evolve way faster the team that the team has evolved as today. So I'm not saying they didn't evolve, but I do think that they evolve a bit slower, because we try to intellectualize, or I try to intellectualize, the process with numbers, instead of just trying to make people evolve and check, like Fabien says, checks like what they're good at, what they lack of, and then just work on what they're really good at, and to make them evolve to become the next team leaders, net managers, or even to create new directors for a new fiduciary in the world.
It's not the first time we see that when we promote a team leader, we promote him because he's very good at the job. And I've seen in the past people changing because they became manager. And what you say is very strong, is that, no, we choose you because you were like that. Stay like that when you become a manager.
But it's true, we see it, at least I see it with the team leaders, is that I think it's human when you I don't know who said that, but people become team leaders after 6 months or after a year. So they like propulse really fast of a leader job, a manager job. We only, like, I don't know what's the age. Like, I'm 36 and I'm managing 90 people. Like, it's who would have believed? Okay, like, in same thing for you guys. Like, I have people who's like 95, 96, 25 or 25, 26 who's managing like 8 people. And I do think that it's human that people change, but I don't think it's the right strategy. You shouldn't change the way you are because you're managing people. And we were talking with some team leaders, or one team leader yesterday. Is like, it's not because you become team leaders that you are the best, and that you need to stop evolving. And some people, and it's where you become team leaders that you need to start working even harder, and that you need to change your mind, and you need to think about what team leaders does, that you need to change the way you are, not change the way you are, but evolve with the team you have and learn from each other, from below, but on the top and at the same level.
Yeah, it's a different topic, but we didn't discuss about that. But I do believe that ego is the biggest problem of managers. And so when we try to find team leader, we try to find those that are not too much ego, because sometimes ego can destroy teams, or at least create a wrong environment for the people.
Oh yeah, and people at the end, we're not the best, and you are the best because you became team leaders, but you don't stop evolving when you start being team leaders, or when you start being a manager. It's your team who make you evolve. So if you don't make your team evolve, then you will never be able to evolve.
Can you give a practical example of a thing that you try to set up, a process or a KPI that was just a waste of time?
all of it. No, like for example, we had issues on the on projects like the, let me think, which I tried to intellectualize the way we filled in a project template, and or like how to do so, and we try to even start creating like a file before even creating the projects, to be sure that every project was well sold, and take away the common sense in a way, which what you were saying, and then it create way more frustration because we all have a lot to work, and I was creating more work for at the end the same result that it is today.
Yeah, and at the end, it's better to just train, educate the team, rather than
I think
thinking there are kids that have to fill forms.
Yeah, and I think we're all smart enough. We had a discussion yesterday with Seb. It's like people. We hire smart people. We are smart people. So by the end, we have the common sense to know if it's a project that this is for a quick start, MMC or for a project at the end. Or another KPIs, which is the number of demo, number of qualification, or number of churns, and then those are only numbers. Like if you only think about numbers and just try to find other numbers behind it, you forget that the numbers is just like a red, like it's just like something just to give you a sense of, is it something I need to go for? Do I have to go further? Do I have to follow more demos with them? Do I have to be sure that they do the first course properly? But if you stop just at the numbers and trying to find even more numbers to argue a decision, that you will, I do believe that we will never find the real problem behind less demo, less qualification, and less calls, at least for us.
Yeah, and the easy way to know why don't you do enough calls is just to ask. Usually the team knows what's up.
Or follow. At the end, this is our job as team leaders or leaders. It's like follow the people you're working for.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's a tip when we choose the future team leader, is to find people like Alexandre that doesn't have too much ego. Okay, responsibilities and workload. I think that the time you have to do something is like the cash or space. If you have a house, you use what you have, and the more you have, the more you waste it. And I think that's something very important. If you give too few to the team, they will take a lot of time to do it. It's like if you have a big house, you will have stuff everywhere. Or if you have too much cash, you will start to waste because you have too much cash. And the time is the same. The time you employee have behave the same way. So ensure that nobody has too much time to do the job. Otherwise, it's just a switch in the productivity that will happen automatically. And that's where we are suffering now in Quick Start, by the way, because we failed on that. And also, it's okay to give a bit too much to people, because if we pay salaries that are above the market, it's also because we expect all employees to be above the market. It's like all the big four. People work a lot because they have big salaries. It's part of the contract. So one thing I think it's important if you want to keep productivity in the team is to be sure that everyone in his team has a bit too much work. You never find the sweet spot where they have just what we need. So it has to be a bit too much, because if it's a bit too few, they will suffer from that, getting bored, or they will switch to less productivity. So a bit too much is better. Of course, it shouldn't be a lot too much, because then you are at risk of being overstressed or even worse thing. But you shouldn't be worried to give a bit too much. You should most of the time be worried to give too few tasks. And the ones in Quick Start knows why I'm saying that. Okay, last thing, flight from complexity. I like this sentence because it comes from SCP, which is the exact opposite of something being simple. But if we simplify everything, we can do anything, and I think they are right. It's one of their marketing campaign. And as we grow, there is a dark force, powerful force that pulls us toward more complexity, more process, less autonomy. People want to do that. There is always an exception or a good idea that we want to do that creates more complexity to the company. One thing we did well at Odoo is to avoid that. is to stay very simple. We actually have only one product. We have a few teams. All our subsidiaries work the same way. We were quite good at keeping the thing simple, but it's a fight of every day in order to get to that level of efficiency. Why does complexity creep in? It's often the easy and seductive answer to a short-term issue, and we don't care about the short term. We should focus on the long term. And everyone adds complexity, and nobody takes it away usually. It's very hard to say we stop selling this. Nobody will say that. But there are a lot of people who will tell you, we should sell that, we should sell this. It's much easier to add complexity than removing complexity. It's like politicians, They have a lot of ideas to create new laws that create a lot of complexity, but after that you have to live with this liability of having a lot of different exceptions everywhere. We try to avoid that. So fighting for simplicity, it's important for us, team leader. It takes courage because you have to say no, and commitment to the long-term game. One of the examples is I need to hit my target this month, so I'm going to push for this exception in our standard contract or process. Like we'll do a specific support where you get an answer within the next 4 hours. I can close my deal for the next month. I'm happy, but then the company will suffer from that. Because for years to come, we'll have to provide a specific support for this customer. It's very bad. So we have to ensure, if we want the company to stay as simple and as efficient as it is today, that we keep it simple and we refuse all the creations of complexity. And what's important is the long term. Reaching your goal today is not that important because we might pay the price for this forever. And I think also companies are like software. They need to be frequently refactored. From time to time, we have to think about that and say, okay, what can we simplify? What can we stop? What can we change so that we remove complexities here and there? Removing complexities mean remove unnecessary rules. Not that long ago, we removed the approval of the holidays. We removed the approval of the expenses. Stop useless reports. Sometimes in a lot of companies, they have reports that they do for the manager since years and the manager don't even look at it. Of course, we don't have that to do, but still. Cancel unproductive meetings. We have a tendency to create meetings for a lot of things. Sometimes it's useful, but at some point, if the meeting is very recurring, maybe we should cancel it so that people can focus on what matters more. Stop complex process, pull out unused feature of the software. Those are all the things that we can do to refactor. Okay, one of the things we see a lot is overreacting. And I would call that the consultant pathology. And that's a thing that the young team leaders do a lot, is because we want to help our team. We are team leaders, we want to help them, we want to support them, that's good. And the consultant pathology is because someone reported a problem, I want to fix it. And the thing is, sometimes, and even often, the best thing to do is to not do anything. To explain, no, we will not do anything. We will not create complexity. Why? Because it's not a priority. Maybe there are better things to do. Because it's a detail that will only happen once every 2 years, so we don't care, or once every year, so we don't care. Even though it was a problem today, it's not a big deal, or an exception, a very specific case. Because most of the time, trying to fix every feedback we get from everyone creates complexity. It's like in the software. If we would have implemented all the features that the customer or the committee would have asked, our software would be super bad, with like a Hydra with 10 heads. Super complex. And the software is simple because we said no to a lot of things. In management, it's the same. If we want the company to be efficient and simple, it also means that we should have the courage to not do everything the team requests us to do. Of course, sometimes there are very good feedback that we should do. I'm not saying to say no to everything, but there is a good balance. And I think, let me check. And I'm good with that. Is there questions or no? Okay.